welcome to episode 2 of the People Exchange. Today, I'm going to go over some questions that you guys have asked me, and I'm going to provide you with a few answers. But keep in mind, this is my perspective. Again, if this is your first time watching me and knowing a little bit about my background, I have 15 years of HR experience, predominantly in manufacturing, very open-minded. I understand business lingo, how to operate, organizational development, things of that nature. That's my forte. That's why I call myself the HR guru, because I feel like I have such a great overview of everything that is HR, and I just want to share my input. And hopefully you find this very informative. So the first question I received is, why do you guys just hire who you want to hire? Okay. So that's a very open ended question because companies tend to do what they want to do in the workplace, right? However, there are hiring processes and procedures that we do have to follow. So your onboarding process is different at every organization, but it usually still follows the same pattern everywhere you go. So from McDonald's to Apple to, Microsoft, we're all doing the same type of hiring process. When I mean the hiring to, bringing you on board, we're following similar steps. Not necessarily the exact same thing, but there are practices that are very aligned in each organization that every HR person knows to do, or from a recruiting team. So a lot of it starts with your recruiting team. Let's say you apply online to the job. After you apply online, there may be a quick test right away, or you may get a phone screen, you may be sent a test, or maybe you'll get an interview right away, right? So let's say you did the phone screen, you did the interview, you did your initial test, you passed that, you got that. Then you went to your actual interview with your manager or supervisor, your future manager or supervisor. You feel that you did great. You asked good questions. You answered their questions. And now you're thinking, hey, is this a company I want to work for? And it's either a yes, no, maybe so. And if it's a maybe so, ask more questions. It's okay to ask questions, right? Do not be afraid to ask a question to your interviewer. As an interviewee, you have every right to know about that company, what it does, who it does it for, why they do it. And you can also ask your future manager or future leader why they chose the company that they're at. What makes it a great company to work for? What keeps them going? What motivates them, daily? How's the workforce? What's the culture like? Those are questions that gets us intrigued, that gets us to want to hire the right hire. And I say the right hire because we can never say who's the right person, right? We don't know until they actually get there. So you make it through the interview phase, right? So then the next phase is, hey, are we going to give this person an offer? So it may be a discussion. It may just be a single-handed decision by the interviewer, and they let the recruiting team know, or the recruiting team, snipes in and say, hey, did you fill out this form? We need feedback. Let your HR person know. The HR person typically may reach out to the employee, do the initial offer, go over information with this prospective hire, and see if they're still interested. If things seem a little bit off, your HR person, if they're like me, will ask some additional questions. And if they're getting like a little iffy answers, I may go back and say, hey, I'm going to follow back up with you later. And this is prior to me even offering the offer, just because I want to get a feel for who we're bringing in. And if anything seems off about that person, I'm going back to my interviewer and saying, why are we hiring this person? They said XYZ. These are red flags that I saw from just getting ready to offer the offer. And then we go from there. And we may not offer the person a position. Or it may be a case of, hey, this is, April contacting you from XYZ company, and I want to extend you an offer of employment. And then I go over the company details. I talk about the company's benefits, any type of company perks that may, make somebody want to work, especially if the money isn't where it wants to be. Always, always, you'll find your employers to focus in on the perks. But as a candidate, especially as a candidate for hire, you have every right to ask for more. See what you can get from these companies. We offer 2 weeks of vacation, ask for 3 weeks of vacation. We said we could do tuition reimbursement up to $3,000 a year. Say you need 5,000. See what can be done. We're offering a 2,500 sign-on bonus. See if you can get a $5,500 sign-on bonus. Employers have flexibility. We're offering you 72,000, give or take. We probably can go 8 to 12 extra thousand, depending on your level and what you want to do. And I say 8 to 12 because that's the most I would ask for, is up to between 8 to 12 extra thousand during the offer, especially if I know what I'm capable of bringing to the table. But keep in mind, most employers leave room for flexibility. So no, I'm not going to offer you the highest tier of pay. No, I'm not. And most HR people wouldn't, most comp people wouldn't, because we want room for growth, and we want room for growth on our chart for pay, because it's just not as simple as you think. We just can't say, okay, I'm giving such and such $83,000, but let's say the max pay for that area is $83,000. Let's say next year we're looking at reviews, increases, or whatnot, and we see that there's no room to make increases. So now we've given this person the highest pay rate and we can't slide them on the pay table. But let's say I offered you $83,000. You came back and you asked for 88. I agree. The one that I could have given you 90. So we give you 88. And then during merit increases or cost of living adjustments, we're able to increase you to 90,000 because there's room on that sliding scale. So keep in mind that, yeah, you want what you can get from employers, but employers also have something that they need to follow. So that's very important. But never take less than what you think you're worth unless you got to take the job. Now, I'm one of those people where you got to take the job. You take that job, you start looking for a new one too. So let's keep going. So after the hiring process and the interview, the candidate accepts the offer. Normally they do have to sign the offer letter. A lot of things now, if it's not at all companies, we do things electronically, right? We're not sitting here waiting for a signed hand signature. We're sending it through Adobe. You're doing an electronic signature. After we get your signature, that normally starts the next step of the process. Some companies do a background check. Most companies I know do. So during that background check phase, they'll normally do check employment, educational history if that's a requirement. And then they'll also go back and they'll check on your previous employer. So when companies check previous employment, they normally have a third party to reach out to that company to see if XYZ worked here, how long did this person work at this company, etc., whatever. But let's say it's delays, nobody responds. There's ways around it. So what I suggest is, when you do start a new job and you do have a application you've accepted, you're going through the background check, instead of having them call those companies, what you can do, you can download your tax transcript that shows every company you've worked for. And in many of the background check systems, if not all of them, you can upload information. If you upload all that information in one PDF file and the person that's conducting the background check reviews that information, they'll cross everything off without reaching out to your previous employer. And this will save the process days. Trust me, this is the only route that I go now when I apply for jobs. I don't have time for you to reach out to this company, the company not responding, this, that, and the other, and it's delaying my hiring process. It's definitely ways around it. If you want to know some more inside scoop about that, just feel free to hit me up, DM me, whatever you need to know, and I'll give you some more tips on how to get through the background check process smoothly and what exactly to download from the IRS. Again, it's just a general tax transcript of all your previous employment. It has dates, times, the time, duration, the time that you worked and everything right there, as well as your salary. So this proves that you were an employee and they don't need to do all that back end work. And it saves Equifax or whoever's going out doing your third party checks a lot of time. And trust me, that background check representative will appreciate you because you just made their job easier. Now they can take a longer lunch break. Now they can call a family member. Now they can check in and do what they got to do or get on to the next case that they're doing, because they're busy people too. And nobody wants to wait all day for a previous employer to respond whether or not you have worked for the company or not. So on top of that, companies may do a drug screen. Most drug screens consist of 9 panels. A lot of companies now are not doing drug screens for marijuana. And companies aren't going to tell you that. I know for a fact that companies will not tell you that. Back in the day, I worked at Amazon. Amazon did not tell you, even though we do not test, or some employers do not test for marijuana. If you do, if we do have reasonable suspicion or anything like that, and you test positive for marijuana, then it will end your employment. And it's as simple as that. If you have questions, feel free to DM me about that. I can answer those questions as well as to why it ends your employment. So, what if it is legalized, but it's also considered an impairment, and that you're under the influence? And if you're out here at work operating heavy machinery, making judgment calls, leading a team, you need to have your best, we'll say your best brain intact, or you need to be there mentally. You shouldn't be in a whole nother zone. Even though sometimes these jobs frustrate us, it is not okay that you need to go out to zone world just so you can zone out and keep everybody out. That is not the best practice, and that's not something that we want to preach. After that background check is done, usually it could take 3 to 5 days, and then you have to do the drug screen. So that takes some time. So it's really important to do things as your new employer prompts you to do so. So follow up on those emails, reach out. If you're missing anything, contact the recruiter, contact the HR person, contact whoever's on that offer letter so you can understand what the next step is and how you get there. Because sometimes there are delays on your employer's end. And a lot of the times the delays are on the tentative hires end, but a lot of times things do fall on us. I've seen delays due to the court systems for weeks, and I've had to put out offers for weeks, and it does not make sense, but it's a process that we do have to follow. Some companies can go ahead and they do hire you pending background screen, but a lot of companies don't. Why? Because we do not want attrition. What is attrition? Attrition is basically, you start a hire, you lose a hire. You start a person, or you lose anybody at the company that's currently active. It counts against the month's attrition. Attrition rate is a big thing, a big KPI, key performance indicator in HR, and people should be well versed in the HR area if they know what KPIs are, what attrition is. And it's just, barriers to basically that surround us that we need to report out on either daily, weekly basis, and sometimes monthly. And attrition does affect the overall metrics in HR. And depending on what company you are at, it may have a heavy impact. It may be less of an impact. But depending on, if you're losing 6 to 8 people a month, that's a lot of people. I'd rather see one person go every month than 6 people 1 month, 4 people 1 month, 2 people here, and then zero. I'd rather us do one person per month and, be standard at that. But lots of things go on. So after you get hired in, what's next? So you start day one, you do orientation. So that's basically how the hiring process goes and the selection process goes at these jobs. During the interview process, how do we know that the person hiring me isn't judging me? That's a good question too. The answer is you do not know. It's certain things that you will not know as a prospective candidate for a job. You're not going to know off bat if somebody is judging you, but trust me, and I hate to say this, but people do get judged during interviews. It should be very open ended and basically non-biased, these interviews, but sometimes biases get the best of us. So it's really important to follow a fair and consistent process and be firm with it. Ask all candidates the same questions, especially if they're interviewing all within the same position. So be sure to ask the same questions to those candidates. Also, make sure that when you are answering questions, that you aren't leaving room for them to think that you are stereotyping them. Be sure to allow them time to speak during their interview. They made it this far. They just didn't get to you overnight. It was a process for their application to actually get to you. So that's why it's really, really important that we see through the process. And lastly, always, end the conversation on a good note. No matter how bad the interview went, you want them to walk away knowing that your company is what it stands for, and you've represented the company well during the interview process. If there's additional notes that the recruiter or HR should know, feel free to reach out to them via email after the interview, after the candidate has left the site. Never go find HR or the recruiting person and say, get them out now. Like, and these are things that I've experienced, and they do happen on a day to day. The next question is, does everyone know how to do their job? Okay. The answer is no. Everyone does not know how to do their job, at least not right away. You come into any company, even myself, like I know how to do HR, yes, but I don't know your company, your culture, how you're doing it, and what you're preaching to these employees. I do not know that. My operators that come in, they may have worked in manufacturing all their lives, but they don't know our equipment on the floor, when it's going to break, how to fix certain things, who to reach out to. So it's a learning process. These jobs are learning processes. It's very important that they have proper training. Training plays a big role with someone knowing how to do their job, because at the end of the day, the supervisor is responsible for ensuring that the employee is getting training, right? But the employee is responsible to understand that training and to actually, perform, right? So normally we do perform companies do perform your company or your manager does the performance review. They can evaluate you and see where you are, if there's more room for development and training. They may say it's room for development, or if you can be signed off on whatever job or area they normally sign you off. And for more so salary employees, it's basically like a lot of follow up, trying to make sure that the employee understands. A lot of things may be written or emailed versus, hey, these are SOPs we need you to follow, like out on the floor, versus, hey, this is your job description. This is what we need you to do. So training, it lies differently from plant floor to, regular office staff. So it does lie differently there. Alrighty, so that was a lot of questions not a lot of questions and answers, but I talked way longer than I thought I would, and probably because I'm just a talker and I become passionate about certain questions. But those were great questions. I do have more, but I want to actually get into what I want to talk to you guys about today. So think about it. Have you ever heard of an employee, or maybe you had a friend come home and say, girl, I had brought this good lunch and somebody just ate it and the lunch was gone? Well, I have several of those stories, but I'm going to tell you about one that led to an investigation. So, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was working at a plant, which is undisclosed at this time, there was a situation where we had somebody to have their, they brought in their food. They're eating their food, every day. And they brought great lunches, right? Lunches was always on point and good. And the employee used to also have like this food truck, and they would have their family to come and they would serve food. People would go out, buy food from the food truck, XYZ, whatever. We allowed it at the site. It was perfectly fine. So the thing is, this employee would started bringing lunch more and more frequently, and then they noticed like one day that their lunch was missing. So they thought, hey, maybe I just left my lunch at home. They thought nothing of it. They brought a lunch the next day. The lunch was missing. Then they reported it. And then they asked if we could look at the cameras. So normally looking at cameras shouldn't be a thing for missing lunches, but it did become a thing because it was ongoing. So the employee was so fed up because we couldn't determine who stole what lunch, who took what. So this employee decided to lace their lunch with a medicine that caused like another employee to get sick and have explosive diarrhea. And the only reason we found out who did it is because this employee decided to report that he was being poisoned by another employee, and he knew exactly who she was. So this employee, she explained that on this day, she had her lunch, she put it in the fridge, she made sure that it was extra good, she said, but she put something in it that caused the employee to get sick, the other person. So the other person didn't know that this medication was in the food, and they decided to go and, take that lunch one more time, warm it up. They having a good old lunch. And the thing is, the lunch periods were done at different times. So they weren't in there when it was happening. But so since it happened, she felt like, I'm going to teach this person a lesson. She didn't care if it was a manager, a supervisor, a colleague, a him or her, it, whatever it was. She did not want her food eaten, and she wanted to prove a point. It is not okay just to go into people's things and take them. And she definitely proved her point. So I had an employee come to HR, reported they were throwing up, they had diarrhea, and they believe it was due to something that they ate that was bad. And then they said that they thought they were being poisoned. And then they explained why. So this is basically clear cut. You don't take other people's stuff. Why would you take somebody's food? Like, you just don't get to do that. So these are the things that come up in HR that get random. And I know people think that all we do is handle paperwork, maybe some hiring and firing here or there, but we deal with situations that are, that are sometimes out of our control, that are sometimes we think and we're like, dang, this is what you're coming with me today. Or sometimes the situations or the investigations actually lighten the moment. Like this one lightened the moment, although it was concerning. I knew that he was going to live, but it was just a simple fact that she got you, like she wanted to know what was going on. I wasn't doing anything to solve her problem. So she solved her problem herself. So that employee did, they talked it out with each other. Some harsh words were said. But at the end of the day, it was nothing that I can do. You stole this person's lunch. You ate it. This was her lunch. She had planned to eat it. Maybe it wasn't going to make her sick, even though this lady wouldn't have ate that food after she did what she did to it. But it was her lunch, right? It was my lunch. It's my food. I eat this lunch every day. His fight was, but you poisoned it this time and you made me sick. Well, it wasn't your food. But people just go on and they want to make it seem like they're right when they're really wrong. And it's just a lot that goes on here. Another food scenario, deliveries. This is about maybe 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. No, longer than that, because I've been at my current employer 3 years. So this had to be like 6 years ago as well. Because we had an employee that every time somebody ordered lunch and paid for it, he would be the one greeting the delivery person and taking the lunch. And this happens all the time at work. It may seem like a joke when you go home and you tell your family member, like, yeah, I ordered lunch, but it never came. And so the one employee really thought I ordered lunch and it never came. So he had reported, I guess, to the restaurant that he was ordering from that day. And it was pizza. And he had reported it. And turns out the pizza place knew the guy who they gave it to. They're like, oh, we gave it to this person. So we pull up the cameras, and I hate pulling up cameras on employees, especially when it comes to certain things like taking food. Like, I feel like that's just so childish. But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to figure out some things. And since it led to a deeper investigation of theft and all that good stuff, then yeah, it became a problem. So what ended up happening here is that we did suspend the employee, like pending investigation, because the employee was literally stealing from somebody else. They paid for this meal. They saw this happen here. So that person did end up getting they didn't get fired. They got 3 day, like a 3 day suspension, and then we did bring them back to work, and they were on like a final notice. The reason why we didn't suspend pending investigation to the other person, because I really felt bad that he got sick after eating the food. And I'm just like, okay, you taught him his lesson. He's not going to do it again. He apologized. She accepted the apology on that end. And that kind of was that. But then this whole situation, I pay for my food. This has been going on, every other week or so. I need to know what's going on. Now my food's missing. I'm actually hungry. And then I called up there. They know who they gave it to. And can you just see, Miss April, if we can figure it out? And we figured it out. So it wasn't fair. That employee did reimburse the other employee when he came back, apologize. But these are like the things that happen. People steal all the time. We even have like vending machine bandits. And I say that because I won't even call it a machine, because now at most companies, you just go up, you kind of grab and go, and you do your U scan. They steal all the time at those things, but those things have cameras. So that's the big issue. Like, why are you stealing with something that has a whole camera? But they take every and anything, and it's just It's just irritating. But with that being said, when you have like a case of the grabs, you shouldn't do it at work. You shouldn't do it, period. Like, you get in trouble in real life. Work is real life too, but why steal somebody's lunch? Why? We will, it's certain things as HR people and as regular humans that we'll never know. We'll never have direct answers. We'll always have to make an assumption. And yeah, and that's just life. Well, my time has come to an end with you guys, and I really do appreciate being able to share that moment. Next week, I won't have as many questions, and I'll just dive right into, a good, juicy story. But again, I do want to be informative. I do want to get you guys in the loop, and I kind of want to be a little entertaining, but I'm aiming more so to be informative about things that you should look out for in the workplace. So stay tuned for the next episode. And I look forward to you guys following, asking questions, and DMing me. Thank you. Bye.